I'm Christina. Welcome to The Void. We're here at Crowbar in Sydney with a legend, a sludgy, magical New Orleans legend, Kirk Windstein of Crowbar. How are you today?
A little tired, but good.
Now, you're actually the reason the venue is named Crowbar.
I did not know that.
Which is exciting because there's been some really magical shows happening, and Trad, who runs this venue, is a huge fan. So I wanted to kick it off with something for them because this venue is really made of love. What was a moment where you fell in love with music?
I mean, honestly, my love of music started really young.
Yeah?
I started taking piano at like 7 years old and got pissed off because the teacher wouldn't teach me Elton John, so I'm like...
Elton John, Bernie Taupin, man.
Oh, yeah,
holy shit.
One of the best duos ever. But I mean, I started out with I'm still a huge fan of soft rock 70s stuff and
like
all
Boston
that.
And shit like
yeah, all that kind of shit. I love it all. But the thing that did it for me was definitely Kiss. Somebody brought a picture of them to school, and I was like, wow. And then a friend of mine lent me Kiss Alive 1 had just come out. That was like the breaking point for me as far as that stepped it up rock and roll wise, the Aces guitar play and just the whole show, the whole everything. And that's probably, I was 11 years old, or 10 going on 11 when I got Kiss Alive, and I've never turned back.
When you kind of come from that thing where you come into it from 70s rock, from Elton John, what makes it that much darker? Is it hardcore? Is it sort of, because I sometimes think that sludge, or whatever you want to call this kind of New Orleans modern soul music, it is heavy, like Matt Pike said it to me, I think, aggressive music made by progressive players.
That's
like,
a good way to put it.
You can play, like hardcore dudes who can shred.
Right. Well, I'm not a shredder, but I do consider myself a very good, well-rounded musician. It's not. I mean, it's got attitude. It's got. I mean, to me, music is emotion.
Yeah, totally.
Regardless of if it's anger, if it's aggression, if it's sadness, if it's whatever. Depending on. I mean, certain songs make you smile. And certain songs make you feel aggressive. And then, for me, just certain songs, it's emotional, I mean, if it doesn't have emotion, it's nothing. Like, I actually was looking on Facebook today, and it was something from like 6 years ago someone posted, and I can't remember the exact quote, but it was from like, Bach or Beethoven or something, and it was, the quote was something like, it's okay to play a wrong note, but it's never okay to not play with passion.
Well, exactly,
and that's what it's about.
Because once you connect to people there, they're not even aware of it.
And that's what we feed off of.
Yeah.
It's like, I mean, I sing and play, so of course I hit a wrong chord here and there. It's kind of difficult to do, but we're an organic, real band. We're old school. We don't use any new technology shit or anything. It's a 4-piece drum kit, 2 fucking guitars and a bass, 1 vocal. So, it's old school.
Yeah.
And sound guys, a lot of them really like that. They're like, oh, thank God, it's not all this new modern stuff.
Yeah.
I mean, I grew up on, stacks of amplifiers and acoustic drums, and that was it. We didn't, we didn't have triggers and, in-ear monitors and all this kind of stuff. I can't, I'm too old school for that.
Now, one of the bands that you've been a part of that I think had a lot of soul is Down. And this next year is the 25th anniversary of NOLA, which I think is one of the greatest ever rock albums of the modern era. I think you've got like these mad riffs and soul and all this energy. Can you tell us something about the making of that album that people wouldn't know?
I don't know if it's something people wouldn't know, but it came together so easy because it was just a simple side project with guys who all love the same style of music that wanted to do something different from our real bands, if you want to call it that, our main bands. And the album wrote itself. I mean, it was just effortless, just, a couple of jams, and we'd write 3 songs a day. It was, everyone had a lot of input, and it was zero pressure. It was, I mean, at the time that like the NOLA record was actually recorded, Pantera had just had the #1 record with Far Beyond Driven. So, I mean, this was just fun. It was just guys, drinking beer and hanging out and jamming, having a good time, So I think that the fact that we put zero thought into it and just had fun is what makes it so special.
Well, I think Pepper was saying to me that they basically put a tape out, like they kind of distributed tapes around.
And I would let people dub it and stuff. Back in the day, you dub cassettes, and everybody would be like, you got a new band. And I met a couple of kids in Europe, and I dubbed it.
He didn't tell them
I didn't tell them we were in it. I just said, man, it's this killer band called Down. You're not going to believe this shit. And everybody like, wow. And then COC played in Sweden, and a freaking kid came up with a homemade Down shirt.
Oh, yeah.
And he asked me if I'd heard this band called Down. I was like, no, man, let's check it out. And I could barely hear it. It had been dubbed like 50 times. It was inaudible.
When we were young, tape trading was a big thing. So we just kind of leaked it out, so to speak, and let everybody copy it and all that, because it was just demos anyway. It wasn't the record. But I mean, people had demos years before NOLA was recorded and before it came out. And, everybody loved it, and we just really didn't say anything, They didn't really know who was in the band, and it's true.
How different was it to do that together than to get Phil to record the Crowbar album that he produced?
How different was it?
Yeah, how's your relationship sort of?
Oh, great. I mean, we've always been close, very close friends. I mean, like, and, working, like a lot of people have a preconceived notion about Phil that is totally wrong, that he comes across as though he'd be, he's got to be in charge and all this kind of shit. And it couldn't be any more opposite, honestly. I mean, like working with him on a couple of Crowbar records, because he produced the self-titled, he produced the vocals and helped out a lot on Broken Glass as well. Yep. And he really, it was, he's very easy to work with. He really is. And he taught me a lot of stuff. Like in a lot of ways, he taught me how to write songs in the sense of arrangement. Like he's a great writer, riff-wise and whatnot, but his real talent, in my opinion, lies in arranging songs. Like he knows when it's time for a key change. He knows when it's time for a tempo change, time for a break in a song or whatever. And, at the time, I wasn't as experienced as he was. He had already had, a couple of Pantera records out on major labels, selling tons of records, whatever. And it really taught me a lot about arrangement. I'm really into that now. Yeah. I'm into like, when we're writing together, it's like, okay, we need to stop here. We need to, double time, half time. We need a key change. We need whatever. And, it's, working with him on the Crowbar was the same thing. I mean, he helped me with a lot of the lyrics. Yeah. He actually, like we would literally, Big Todd, our bass player at the time, Sexy T, would drive the car to the studio, and Phil and I would sit in the back seat with a notebook and write together, So it was kind of like he helped out with a lot of the stuff, and kind of that actually kind of showed me. I was so nervous because I didn't have all my lyrics prepared for the Crowbar record, and he kind of, I guess that kind of started the whole thing of me kind of writing on the spot or writing like a song a day of lyrics, like
do that?
Waking up in the morning, yeah, a lot. I mean, that's pretty much how I do it. So like waking up in the morning with nothing and then knowing I got to be at the studio in 3 hours, and then when I get there, there's a song. But the spontaneity of it and all that lends a lot to it being fresh and not overthought, and
And you're training the muse, like you're like, hey, when I'm in the studio,
right.
come to me now. I need a song.
Yeah.
Who decided, like those opening drums on High Red Extinction, like the butcher block thing that sounds like like wood and stuff, like that was sort of my introduction to the band. Who decided on that? Like that is such a strong beginning to a thing. Like This is a personal question.
Who's drumming, who's a great drummer, he is. I mean, the thing is, like with when a band first starts out, you write your songs at rehearsal. You got, your first 10 songs or whatever. You get your first record out. Like it gets, most all of those songs were prepared ahead of time through a lot of rehearsal. So when we went into the studio, the band was very well rehearsed. I mean, on Crowbar, on the self-titled that we're talking about, Phil would come to rehearsal with the band and watch us and kind of say, you know what, fellas, don't do this, try this, whatever, and kind of like a conductor or something, and it, but probably if it's a drum thing, Craig kind of did his own thing, like I said, great drummer, but as you get more and more into the writing, more and more albums and stuff like that and all, it's a lot, I mean, we're all getting older and, life comes into play, family life and whatever, and it's not just a bunch of kids sitting around, drinking cheap beer and
that's good.
I have no, not a care in the world and all the time in the world to do whatever you want to do. I mean, practicing 5 nights a week, rehearsing and all. And on the stuff now, it's a different approach to writing. It really is. Back then, I mean, we're much more mature, and we know we're much more mature, much more experienced as writers and as players and everything. But back then it was different because most bands, most stuff, everything was so well rehearsed. When you went in the studio, it was like the drummer could knock it out in a day or two.
But that's good, yeah. No, we were talking before about how music is more than anything else about emotion. Do you think you have to feel true love or true pain to be able to be a really great musician? And how has falling in love or experiencing great pain, how has that affected your output? Were you more creative in those moments, and are you continuing in a loving place to be how has it sort of affected you as a creative person?
It really, I mean, just in it, for me, the answer would be a very general answer. It's just my love of music. I can write the darkest, heaviest, saddest sounding thing when I'm the happiest.
That's beautiful. Yeah.
I mean, maybe it's a subconscious thing to get out something dark in your mind, in your soul, whatever it might be. But that's, I always tell people, and everyone thinks that they have a vision or something. Yeah, it must be midnight and raining outside. You got candles lit and it's all dark and doomy and gloomy. It's like, no, I write
sitting with your pup and your wife, chilling.
Just exactly in the chair. Sunshine coming through the windows. You're
connected to something else. I think it's interesting. The whole New Orleans sound. I've never been there, but it when you hear it. And I think it's cool that it's sort of become a thing. When you first found Jimmy Bower, who was obviously, you guys have had a ridiculously long emotional musical relationship. How did you know he was the right guy, and what was your vision for the band? We're we're going to be like this and this, and not like that. Those guys suck. Yeah.
Actually, what happened is Jimmy and I started playing in a band called Shell Shock, and then we kind of were going more and more. After Shell Shock ended, more in a thrash direction, and then we started listening to Melvins and Carnivore and stuff like that, and he picked me up on the way to band rehearsal, and we'd be listening to the same cassette tape every evening on the way to rehearsal, and one day we just looked at each other and said, why don't we just go the opposite direction of what we're doing instead?
I'm glad you did.
Yeah, well, so am I, so are we. But honestly, we did. We said, instead of trying to, play thrash or play fast, play technical stuff and all, why don't we simple it down, and make it more doomy and dark sounding, Sabbath, meets Melvins, meets Carnivore, whatever it might be. And that was kind of, it was I always give Jimmy a shout out, because it was really he and I together that kind of started. We said, we're going to do something totally fucking different than what all the other bands are doing in our area.
Did you invent the New Orleans sound?
No. All of the New Orleans bands have, we always joke about it, we all have similar, every band sounds like themselves and it's totally different, but we all have something that somehow keeps us together, within the NOLA sound or whatever.
It's like a gumbo or a Lux. It's like a stew or maybe it's Creole thing. Yeah.
Played together, You know, that's like I used to always say in the beginning of the whole NOLA thing, everybody started doing side projects, doing, you know, it's never been competition between, you know, like the LA bands and all at the time where, you know, they all hated each other and it was all a competition and fuck you, fuck this, whatever.
Because they couldn't play.
Well, I mean, but we were all like trying to help one another out and jamming together, going to shows together, you know, whatever it might be. And that's just how it, you know.
Maybe that's why it survives so well. And you've got like, there's only a handful of those LA bands who like are around, and a lot of them can't play for shit. Let's be real. No, I'm not going to say it. I'm just putting it out there. A lot of them have not practiced in about 20 years. Like, so I'm glad you guys are still practicing. And on that note, when's the next Crowbar album? I bet you guys are making it.
We already
You are.
drum sounds done. So when we get back from this, you know, from these Australian shows, we'll probably take a week off or something, and then try to get Tommy in on you know, and just get it rolling. You know, we pretty much have. We're working on the 10th and final track on the album right now. Everything else is written and like 95% arranged. So, yeah, it's, you know, really when we get back from this, and I mean the holidays are coming and all that kind of stuff, so that kind of slows you down. But honestly, after the first of the year, you know, we'll already be recording the record, but after the first of the year, after the holiday stuff is all done, we're probably gonna live and breathe the record, you know.
That's exciting.
Knock it out, you know. So, and it's
Give us a
coming
hint.
out great.
Yeah. Can you give us a little hint?
It's got a lot of, in my opinion, it's got a lot of old school Crowbar to it, you know. It's one of the few that we don't have very many fast parts at all. I mean, it's only really like one or two riffs on the record that are actually, I mean, there's some upbeat stuff, but not, you know, a lot of our stuff has a lot of hardcore to it. This one's more doomy, in my opinion. A lot of the choruses, especially, like very melodic, very doomy. It kind of, me and Matt were talking about it, and it's true. It reminds me of like a more European sounding, like metal mixed with NOLA doom.
Like if Sabbath kind of rolled around, or what is that European? What would you define as European?
It's hard to explain. Like the guitar harmonies and stuff remind me of like early, like you know, Paradise Lost, certain things like that. It reminds me of something that we would have written 25 years ago.
Yeah.
Which is cool.
That's about us. People are you're gonna lose your minds. You know you are. It's been ages. What, like 3 years? Yeah.
Yeah. Since about November 1st of 2016.
It's a nice rhythm.
Yeah. It's been, but I mean, we've done nothing but tour, you know, I mean, it's as much as is humanly possible for the last 3 years. So we've actually had a little break to write this, you know, stuff, and
Does it have a name yet?
it does not.
You should call it.
I think we kind of were talking. I know me and Matt were talking. It's definitely not going to begin with an S, because we had Sever the Wicked Hand, Symmetry in Black, and The Serpent Only Lies. But we're thinking of trying to find just like maybe one strong word
I support that.
instead of a phrase. Because, you know, all of the album titles, well, other than Equilibrium, but most all of them are, especially recently, you know, Sever the Wicked Hand, Symmetry in Black, Serpent Only Lies. It's like, you know.
The whole thing.
Yeah, we're trying to come up with just like one strong word or something.
What kind of stuff are you writing?
You mean
Like lyrically and stuff.
I don't have it. No. I have zero lyrics.
So it's the other thing. You're going straight to the studio and you're going to write it on the way.
Once the music's done, then the lyrics come about.
Do you mess with any poets and stuff? Yeah. See, Phil Anselmo is like into Walt Whitman. Mike from I Hate God was out here. He's like, I'm into Charles Bukowski. So I'm like, it's interesting that, what you're like devouring and stuff. But I guess it's a different kind of a style to go full impromptu, like on the way to the studio. You're not really like reading other people and kind of, it'd be different. I don't know.
My approach to lyric writing is very seldom is it actually like a story or about. I just write thoughts, and I write a lot of metaphors, you know, and it just usually comes together well.
Yeah. Would you and Down ever get back together and do do some more stuff around this new Crowbar record. You should. I'm just saying on behalf of everyone.
I mean, shows, yeah, some special shows or something, for the 25th anniversary of NOLA. We're talking about all of that. But as far as doing a record and all that, I mean, I don't know. It's not in my hands. I mean, I'm yeah, it will be. But I mean, in all honesty, I mean, you see how busy everyone is. Me with Crowbar, Pepper with COC, Phil with his 20 bands. So it's kind of like, I mean, if they were up for doing it and it didn't, my big thing is, and in all honesty, and I know Pepper feels the same way, and I'm sure Phil feels the same way as well. If it doesn't interfere with anything to do with our, see, Down started out as a side project, and that's kind of what it's would be again, where everyone's got their main things going on, and Down would be done in spare time, But it's it's such a great, we put out tons of great music together, so.
Yeah, I mean, what you're doing with Crowbar is amazing, but that's another kind of flavor of material. What's your history with Pepper Keenan? How did you guys meet? Because you're really two very interesting players. I'm really glad Corrosion of Conformity are finally coming here. I've wanted them to come down here for like 3,000 years, and they're one of my favorite bands as well. And I'm like, oh, it's awesome. So yeah, how did you guys meet, and how do you kind of see each other as players? How do you think you're like different, and what do you share?
I mean, we met at shows. I mean, we all did. We'd all run into each other, and I mean, the whole NOLA scene was very close knit. I mean, all of us old guys still keep in touch. We don't go to shows and stuff much at all anymore. But as far as, playing wise, Pepper and I could not be any more polar opposite.
Really?
But that's what works well.
In what way? Sorry, I'm like, I just heard guitar nerds through the screen.
He's a lot more raw than I am. Although I'm self-taught, I'm a lot more, I don't say unraw, but it's a different style, and being two completely different types of players, it works well.
Yeah, I thought it was really interesting. Yeah.
It definitely does. It works great. So.
What has made what makes someone be a really long lifer member of Crowbar? Because you've had about 18 members over the history of the band. Yeah, I added it up on the internet. Yeah, but I was like, that's a lot.
Yeah. Well, a lot of people don't realize though. Tommy, our drummer, is going on 16 years. Matt's already been 13 or something. Most bands don't even last that long.
What do you think? Tommy and Jimmy and Craig all brought. What were the different things they brought to drums for the band? Do you think?
Well, they're all three of them are completely different style of drum. Jimmy's a much simpler drummer. Plays behind the beat, got a great groove, but he's not very technical. Craig Nunemacher is a very technical drummer, but kind of got his own style and does a lot of different stuff. And Tommy's done a great job because he's literally playing songs from Jimmy, Craig, and Tony Costanza, who played on Sonic Excess album. And no, we don't do anything from Equilibrium live, really. But he's literally doing three other guys' stuff and the stuff that he's written and done himself. Yeah. And he adapted great. I mean, honestly, I'm not saying it because he's standing right there.
Yeah, actually, do you want to come over here and say hello? Sure. Hey, look, we're going to have a guest,
Nice shirt. Oh, there we go.
What's happening?
We have a guest star. Come on down. So,
Hello.
What's it been like being together for all this time?
It's quite a journey. It's been a long run. Actually, going on 16 years out of the 30 years, so over half the life of the band now.
What's special about this band, do you think? You've obviously played in it.
I just think it's really true from the heart. Everything's honest. It's real. It's what Kirk feels, what we feel, what comes out. Is emotions, and I think it translates through the music. And I think that's what separates this band from most doom bands. You know, I mean, but you know, doom, just straight metal bands, but in general, but you know, the style, the genre, I think it's definitely unique.
The heart.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
Yep.
I love it when people don't understand heavy music, that it's actually the most emotional, heartfelt from the best people. Like,
I mean, it's just like, you know, it's completely different, but it's still the blues, you know.
totally, yeah.
I mean, like we were saying earlier in the interview, you know, it's all about emotion, and it really is. And it's like, that's the thing is, you know, with Crowbar, I mean, number one, we wanted to have our own sound, and love us or hate us, you know, only one band in the world sounds like Crowbar, and that's Crowbar. So we accomplished feat number one, which is to be original and not sound like anyone else. But in general, you know, I mean, it's organic, it's real. Like I said, you know, we hope not to fuck up on stage tonight, but you know, we don't have. I mean, we just do everything old school.
Yeah.
That's what we grew up on, and that's the way it'll always be.
It's exciting. It's good.
Yeah.
Are you excited about the new album coming out next year that we've
yeah.
already spoken about? Yeah.
I mean, not only am I a member of the band, but I'm a fan of the band. So it's exciting for me to wonder what the next batch of songs is gonna sound like. You know, we speculate like, all right, wow, I wonder what it's gonna sound like next album. But you never know yourself, you know. I mean, it's just what comes out is what comes out, and that's where your mind and your body and your soul's at the time, and that's how you're right, basically where you're at in your life at that point, you know, and that's how it comes out through your music, you know. So I'm kind of curious to see how it's gonna sound.
I think we all are, right? Like, I think we're all pretty curious.
It's gonna be killer.
Yeah.
I'm
It's-
very excited about it. I got a very good feeling.
What do you think? Yeah.
Thank you, everyone. I'm gonna step out of this interview and leave this back to.
All right, Rocket.
I like that we were just talking about you and you just appeared. It's some magic shit. Dun, dun. Yeah. Okay. Trying to think of some other things. Why do you think Pantera became so huge and everyone else didn't get as huge? Did they only have room for one band on MTV?
Well, I mean, at the time they came out, you know, all of the new wave of British heavy metal bands, even the thrash bands. I mean, at the time Pantera came out, Metallica were in the process of completely changing their sound, and you know, a lot of success that, you know, the big four, so to speak, had. Not that it went down or anything. It's just I think Pantera was like a breath of fresh air, in a sense. Like, to me, I mean, many people say it, and it's true. They're like the metal, you know, the Texas metal version of Van Halen. And it's not just because, but it's not just because of Vinny and Dime, God bless them both, you know, being brothers, but it's like they were arena ready playing fucking clubs because they played so many shows and they cut their teeth playing, you know, writing, you know, they had albums out on their own label on Metal Magic. And, you know, they were like, when they got signed, they were arena ready. I mean, they weren't like some young band of guys that only played a few shows and, you know, somebody got a hold of the demo and signed them to this big deal. It's like they earned it, you know, for years and years and years and years. And I mean, you know, you can't, I mean, you got a charismatic guy like Phil with an amazing voice fronting the band, who's, you know, is one of the greatest frontmen in my opinion, as far as, you know, controlling the crowd and just, you know, in general. But and I mean, when you got, I mean, I'll go with Rex next because I played with Rex in Down, you know, on a few records. You know, as tight as can be, you know, great musician, and you know, then you got Vinnie Paul, you know, amazing drums, and of course I'll save Dime for last, but you know, he's, in my opinion, you know, it's guitar playing. Being a fan of certain guitarists is really, we had another airplane, it's really a matter of taste, you know. Like, personally, he's one of my favorite guitar players of all time, as far as, you know, soloing and, you know, even riff writing or whatever. But I think Pantera is one of those bands that, you know, all four members, which you don't get it that much these days, all four members together created something so magic and so original and so special that without one of the guys, it's not Pantera.
You couldn't do it at all. Like it is one of those things.
Very few bands that are like that, you know.
Yeah.
You couldn't replace Rex or Vinny or, you know, obviously Phil, you know, and Dime. You know, I mean, people talk about, you know, I mean, now that Vinnie Paul, you know, unfortunately has passed away as well, you know, I mean, I don't know. I mean, like, I think what Phil's doing right now is great with the Illegals doing the Pantera stuff, but they're not trying to be Pantera. You have the voice of Pantera, you know, the lyricist of Pantera, you know, fronting the band, and they're doing the music of Pantera, which is a great thing because we all love it. But it's one of the few bands in rock history almost where if one guy were to leave or whatever, it wouldn't work. It's almost like Zeppelin. When John Bonham passed away, they were smart enough to say, you know what, no one's going to replace him. So let's just stop.
I think one of the only times I can think of it working was, and it's not quite the same, but AC/DC. And it's like, you're never going to be Bon Scott, but if you're going to have your introduction to the world be Back in Black, that's pretty much the only way you can replace someone. Come in and that's your fucking introduction to the world, because otherwise it's... So yeah, I mean that's a bit of a hard thing to initiate.
Comparison, it definitely is, because it's true. You know, I mean, everybody. I mean, I was young. You know, I was only 15 when Back in Black came out.
It's Australia.
Oh yeah. But you know, of course, I heard I was just starting to get into AC/DC when Bon Scott died. So you know, I was young and not that familiar with it. So when I heard, we had a thing on our local radio station when I was a kid. They had every like Friday or Saturday night at midnight, it was an album hour, and they'd play a brand new record. And I remember like recording on my little cassette recorder. They're like, AC/DC's new album is out. It's called Back in Black, and they would play the record in its entirety. So I recorded it on my cassette tape. And I mean, you know, when I heard it, I was just, you know, I'm going to bed listening to it that night, you know, stayed up late to listen to it and record it. And the next day I'm listening to it and it's just, you know, Brian Johnson just worked, you know, it worked. I mean, most people like Bon better. And I mean, you know, there was a certain uniqueness and
So
so
Australian. No one could define Australian man more effective, or the idealized, most ridiculous, most intense, potent version of Australian men's ridiculousness than Bon.
I mean,
Actually, Amy from Amyl and the Sniffers, they just won like the equivalent Australian Grammy Award for rock album. She is definitely his bastard child. She is fucking insane. You should suss that band, Amyl and the Sniffers. They were terrible.
I mean, I've never heard of them.
Oh no, they're amazing. Yeah, no, they're pretty new, but it's hard, and it's, I think, like that band. I mean, I think as well, the cool thing is about Pantera is I think for a lot of us, especially like here in Australia, you know, we all fell in love with Pantera as generations around it. Like it's very much a part of like our culture. And I think they, in some ways, served as a gateway drug to all the other bands in this world. And I think that's really important.
Yeah, I mean, you do hear a lot of the, you know, well, they're not so young anymore, but bands, you know, like post-Pantera that had obvious huge influences, you know, from Pantera. But they were really original, you know, at it and great at it. And they came at a time when, you know, grunge was coming up and whatnot. And, you know, you got... You know, I don't want to mention names, but, you know, certain guitar players or whatever on the cover of Guitar World magazine that really don't deserve to be on the cover of Guitar World. And you know, Dime was a breath of fresh air and against the grain of everything else that was going on, you know. I mean, even when they did, like, you know, Great Southern Trendkill, you know, the title of the record is... because of what was going on. They were like, we're going to be fucking Pantera and do what we do, and that's it. We're never going to change.
There's a great quote I read that Rex did about, he said that they heard the Black Album when they were making Vulgar Display of Power, and they went, okay, if you're going down that way, we're going this way.
Well,
And
they got heavier with each record, you know.
Oh, I'm not like hating on Metallica. No, yeah.
Actually, I mean, you know, when the Black Album came out, just like millions of other people, I was kind of like, what? And then little by little by little, I started listening. You know, of course, I bought it, and I love the record. I think it's great, amazing production, great fucking songs. You know, but yeah, Pantera. I mean, but think about what Metallica had already done. You know, to set. You know,
And I think that's really.
I get it. Well, like, you know, they wanted to grow a bit and expand a bit, and you know, and with their sound, and I mean, I respect that very much. But yeah, Pantera got heavier and heavier, you know, more abrasive and more aggressive with each record, really, you know.
But I love you, like what you're saying, that the reason why they did hit was because they were arena ready before it happened. And I think that whole idea of instant fame, it might be a thing now, but it's like the light that, the flame that burns twice as bright burns out like twice as fast. So it's it's very easy for people to get famous with very little effort now. But to have done like what you've done, to have been making albums for what, like 30 something years?
Well, I mean, close to it.
That's a very different animal. And I think the cool thing is about the fans of this kind of music is they're in it for real. And, you know, I try and think about like, well, why is this fantastic, like interesting rock music? What's happened to the world in terms of why has it dropped off the radio and why are they kind of dealing with this? And it's like, what do you think they need to do? Sometimes I think like it's songs, like there needs to be more capital S songs, and maybe that's the focus. And maybe if you are a lot of bands have given up on making a song break, so they make a record. Not to say that's a bad thing or anything. Right. I don't think either way is right, but we live in this sort of really disposable, the song kind of a moment, whereas a lot of the, you know, it's not like that for, you know, whatever sludgy, doomy, you know, heavy music. I don't know. I didn't really have a question there, but there you go. Stuff.
I mean, for us, we still think of it as, you know, we're never going to have a hit. You know, we never wanted one. We just want to do what we're doing, you know. Slow and steady wins the race. It's like I would much rather be 54, you know, going on 55 years old, sitting here in Australia playing original songs that we wrote, you know, as opposed to having, you know, 2 or 3 records that were really big and having a 5-year career and then falling off. I mean, I've wanted to do this forever. You know, I didn't want to get rich real quick, get famous real quick, and then, you know, invest my money and retire or some kind of shit. It's like, because I love music. I love writing music. I love recording music. I love playing live. I love meeting fans. I love the whole atmosphere, the whole game, you know.
The life.
Exactly. Yeah. And, you know, that's why, you know, I look to bands like, you know, Motorhead and like a band like Melvins. Yeah. You know, Melvins. It's definitely not a household name, but I mean they do quite well for themselves. They have a huge, like, you know. Yeah. I mean, you know, but I mean, you know, they just do what they do and they're amazing at it, and they don't give a shit what anyone else thinks. And that's the same thing with Crowbar. It's like we've never tried to bring. We've expanded the sound a bit and brought in new elements, but it was not new elements of modern music. It was like more classic rock elements. You know, it's like there's a lot of bands that, you know, one record, you know, they got their own sound and this style of music gets popular, so they put out a record similar to what's hot at the moment. And that's the worst thing you can do. It's like, yeah.
And it's the whole attitude of the old music industry. And it's like, when people say like the music industry died, and it's like, well, it wasn't really a great industry. I mean, yeah. Lemmy from Motorhead, he said it's the business show. It's not fucking show business. It's a business show. So we've got to do it for ourselves. It's never become more important to be do it yourself. Okay, final things. Who have been the most transformative people that changed the way you play music? You met and you're like, oh, I'm doing things differently.
I mean, as far as like influences and
like people you've actually met. I don't know. I don't want to say influences, but like maybe like moments. What have been like moments?
I mean, it's
okay.
I mean, once again, I hate to. It's not that I don't have an answer, but it's just my love and passion of music, and you know, I have my idols like, you know, Phil and Out of Thin Lizzy, which I'm wearing now, you know, Lemmy and Ace Frehley and whatnot. You know, guys that really, Michael Schenker, you know, guys
rock and roll.
really- yeah, I mean, it's just, it's not one moment in particular. It's the journey. See, that's the whole thing is, the journey is, that's what it's all about. If you reach that destination, it's over. The whole thing is about the journey never ending. You never do reach the final destination, because if you do, it's over. So you just keep chugging along and enjoy it as you can, and spread the music and try to make the fans happy, and you know, and that's it. I mean, what good is reaching the top of the mountain? I mean, that it's over. You got to climb back down the motherfucker, and you're done. You know.
I think that's a perfect way to end the conversation. This is
Piss really bad.
This is okay. This is Kirk Windstein from Crowbar. This is Crowbar. Thank you for watching.
The amount of money you get out the price of an album is like ridiculous, isn't it? And that's all changing now. The record companies have cut their own throats, and they're too stupid to even see it. It's all going to be on the internet 5 years.
I think it's not bands of putting their own stuff out.
Yeah.
You can get in the charts now in England, just on hits. Hits
It's incredible.
On the internet and stuff. You know.
So that's where it's going, you know. And they're too dumb to know that they blew it, you know.